Hello friends, my name is Ramasu. Today we shall discuss about topic the story point estimation. Friend, today's topic is very interesting, especially if you have interest in project management and you want to learn about it. So let's start, friend. First of all, I would request to please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell option as well so that my videos can reach to you, and also you can follow me on the Facebook page as well. Whenever we are initiating any project, either we are using the waterfall methodology or either you are using the agile methodology to implement a project, the first thing is that how much time is required to complete a project. Now if we talk about in agile based approach for the implementation of a project, software projects, the agile based approach says that you divide the project into smaller chunks, that is called at a sprint, and you with each sprint completion you will review that sprint, and after some time, once the sprint is completed, you will reach till end of the project. Now the story point estimation. Now what is a story here? Story is basically called as user story. User story means a requirement of a functional requirement of a customer. For example, if you are implementing a mobile of the e-commerce solution and you want the customer can do the payment through the credit card on the e-commerce store. So this is a user story. Customer can select a product backlog. It is a user story. Customer can add a product in a bucket checkout process. So this is a user story. Now story point estimation. Story point estimation. For example, there are 10 stories in a project. Okay, so what we do that to estimate the user story, that how much time is required based on the complexity and the risk associated and the difficulty level, we assign a points to the story. Okay, so based on the points estimation, based on the points calculation, we can do the estimation that how much time is required to complete a story. So that is basically called as the concept of a story point estimation. Story point estimation means that you assign points to the user requirements, okay, based on its difficulty level, based on the risk level, based on the complexity level to the user story, and uh, these estimations, these points are required or used to estimate the required time to complete a user story. Now, story points are a way to estimate the amount of efforts required to complete a user story in your product backlog. Product backlog, what is product backlog? Product backlog means, friend, for example, you are implementing an e-commerce solution. There are 50 user stories to complete a e-commerce solution. So product backlog is basically the 50 user requirements. For example, this is just a requirement. This is just an example. So the factors which involved in the story point estimation is, first one is the risk, is the amount of total risk or uncertainty associated with the task. For example, if the task involves third parties, contractors, or project stakeholder, it can increase the amount of risk. Repetition is times experience with similar task. Complexity is the task level of difficulty. So there are few level of factors involved whenever you are estimating the story. Now the steps to estimate the story points. First step is the introduce story points to your team. So in this step, a strong understanding of story points is crucial to success. To ease your team into the process, walk them through the basics and benefits of story points. In particular, make sure that understand that the story points numbers need to scale relative to each other. So basically, in this section, what we do, we define the story, the user requirement, and also we define the scale also used to estimate the story. Then determine your story point sequence. So what you do, this will become the scoring method your team will use to assign story points in your estimation meetings. Sequences are helpful because they force your team to focus on the relative size between the numbers, making estimating complex tasks easier. So what story point sequence should you use? Normally we use the Fibonacci sequence method for the story point, like 0, 0.5, 5, 1, 2. So based on the Fibonacci, we use the story points sequence here. Next is the story points matrix. Story points matrix is basically uh, you can say a fleshed out version of your story point sequence. It serves as a baseline for your story for your estimation meeting and gives your team a clear idea of how to score each task. For example, if you just see here, story point 1 means that amount of effort required minimum, amount of time required few minutes, task complexity little complexity, and task risk are none. Okay, also like story point 5 means the amount of effort required moderate, amount of time required few days, task complexity medium, and risk is associated is moderate. Also 13, if you say story point 13, that means amount of effort required maximum effort, amount of time required a month, task complexity high, and task risk associated is also very high. So this is a story point as the story point matrix which can be used to estimate a story. Then next step is the hold a planning poker meeting. So give your time a defined story point matrix, for example, for reference, as well as a set of cards that depict your story point sequence. Select a user story, discuss the story with your team, that what you want, what is the requirement of the customer. Team member privately select the story point card they feel represents the amount of effort required to complete the story. uh, Team reveal their card selections at the same time. If the story points align, move on to the next user story. If the story points don't align, continue to discuss the user story until you reach an agreement. Repeat the process until you have assigned story points to all the tasks in your product backlog. Using your story point matrix as a baseline, determine how many tasks your team can complete in the upcoming sprint. Sprint means that a time box period, normally 3 to 4 weeks time period, in which we have to complete the planned stories. Okay. Next is the plan and execute your sprint. So once you have estimated the story points, you can execute your sprint 3 to 4 weeks time periods. You wouldn't know exactly how many story points you can complete per sprint, also known as, this is called a sprint velocity, until you have completed your first sprint. So basically in your sprint planning meeting, use your best estimation of how many story points to include in your sprints based on the complexity of task and the story point value. And next one is the last one is the improve your story point estimation based on previous estimation. That is basically the concept that once first sprint completed, so based on the previous sprint estimations which you use for story point estimation, you can improve your next story points estimations, and it will become for example, it will become a baseline for you, so that you can improve your estimations, and you can also recognize and calculate that how much time is required to complete the sprint, next sprint as well. So friend, thanks a lot for watching the video. I hope you like this video. If you like it, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and thanks a lot for watching the video. Thank you, friends.